Welcome to our October 2021 edition of This Month in Payroll. I'm Rowan Geddes, National Lead Partner for PwC's Payroll Advisory Practice, and in this edition I will discuss the Fair Work Ombudsman's annual report for 2020/21, an ASIC warning as superstapling approaches, STP Phase 2 deadline, and the mental health and wellbeing surcharge in Victoria. This month, the Fair Work Ombudsman released their 2020/21 annual report. It is not surprising that this year a large portion of the report focused on the FWO's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, where the Ombudsman has excelled in two of its key priorities, education and advice. Over the last 12 months, the Fair Work Ombudsman has provided advice on common inquiries such as lockdowns, the JobKeeper scheme, award-specific flexibility provisions, alternative working arrangements, and stand-down/redundancies. This month, it updated its coronavirus website, coronavirus.fairwork.gov.au, to include return to work guidance, including information about issuing directions to return to work, refusals to return to work, lifting stand-downs, and alternative work arrangements. The website also contains an interactive tool to help employers manage the return to work and links to other relevant government departments, such as Safe Work Australia, and the relevant COVID-related pages on state and territory government websites. While the annual report focused on the FWO's knowledge-sharing activities, much of the rest of the report focused on the FWO's enforcement and compliance activity. Last year, there were 6 areas of focus, being large corporate underpayments, fast food, restaurants and cafes, horticulture, franchises, sham contracting, and vulnerable and migrant workers. This year, the Ombudsman has added a 7th focus area, contract cleaning. But recapping the large corporate underpayment focus. During the year, the Fair Work Ombudsman received government funding of $22.3 million to increase its targeted compliance and enforcement outcomes. Using this funding, it has established a specialised large corporates branch and is also considering how technology and external expertise can be used to investigate large corporate underpayments. In the 12 months to 30 June 2021, the Fair Work Ombudsman completed 49 self-reported matters, resulting in back payments of $118 million in underpaid wages for 54,000 employees. In dealing with these matters, it noted a shift back to the use of compliance notices. Of the 49 self-reported matters handled by the large corporates branch, only 17 resulted in enforceable undertakings. Meanwhile, the Ombudsman doubled the use of compliance notices in 2020/21 across all employer actions. The Fair Work Ombudsman attributed the underpayments largely to the state of governance and internal controls used by employers to monitor, detect, and address non-compliance, as well as a level of complacency. They have provided a list of 7 factors which they found drove the underpayments, being operating manual processes for recording hours of work or employers not keeping records of time worked at all, failing to apply an enterprise agreement to all of the employees it covers, applying annualised salaries that don't cover the award rates for the hours worked by employees or that have become insufficient over time to meet the minimum entitlements. Fourth, no or poor mechanisms for checking payroll compliance or completing annual reconciliation requirements, employers relying on a decentralised approach to managing payroll. Sixth, failing to invest in payroll and or workplace relations expertise when setting up payroll systems or implementing payroll rules for new or changed entitlements. And finally, a lack of attention by boards and senior leaders that wages compliance is a significant compliance risk. These examples provide a great checklist for all payroll functions and management. A few comments around them from us though. The lack of adequate internal controls or complacency about workplace obligations may have been correct many years ago. However, we have seen a significant shift in this by employers. Similarly, there is much more focus by boards now on the value of payroll and the risk it manages. The comments around time and attendance and insufficient annualised salary buffers are not new call-outs. Employers who are using manual time capture processes or using existing time and attendance systems ineffectively are carrying risk. In contrast, the need for payroll and workplace relations to talk regularly and the concerns about a decentralised payroll function are both recently identified causes. And finally, we are noting a development in the Fair Work Ombudsman's attitude where the underpayment is related to an enterprise agreement rather than the award, based off a view that the employer should surely be able to be compliant with an enterprise agreement that they agreed to themselves. Payroll is in the middle of several significant transitions to new regimes. The first round of casual conversion offers were due to be made by last month, by 27th of September. Super stapling commences on the 1st of November. And Single Touch Payroll Phase 2 is due to commence on the 1st of January 2022. Once super stapling comes into effect, most employers will need to arrange for an employee's superannuation guarantee contributions to be made into either the fund chosen by the employee or, if no choice has been made, the stapled super fund for the employee, or, if no choice has been made and there is no stapled super fund, the employer's default superannuation fund. Employees will now have a stapled super fund which will follow them from employer to employer. And an employer's default super fund is likely to have to work harder to capture the employee's contributions. These choices have prompted the Australian Securities and Investment Commission to issue a reminder that most employers are unable to provide financial product advice unless they have an Australian Financial Services licence. Financial product advice includes statements about matters such as joining or making contributions to a particular super fund, the advantages or disadvantages of making additional contributions to a super fund, including by salary sacrifice, rolling accumulated superannuation into or out of a fund, and selecting particular investment or insurance options within superannuation. There is a specific call out in the advice that employers should not be hawking their super fund and warns employers to be mindful not to exert a pressure on employees in relation to choosing a super fund. Rather, employers are limited to the provision of factual information, which includes providing information about super choice, how employees can tell their employers what fund they want the super guarantee contributions from the employer to be paid into, and what will happen if the employee does not choose a super fund. Given Payroll's frontline role in explaining the superannuation processes to new employees, this warning from ASIC about what is and isn't financial advice is timely. Single Touch Payroll Phase 2 is also coming, with a mandatory start date of 1st of January 2022. At a recent Tax Institute presentation, the Tax Commissioner, Chris Jordan, spoke about the timing for the STP2 expansion. Noting that the start date comes at a busy time for both accountants and employers, Commissioner Jordan notes that the ATO has committed to taking a flexible approach. While the start date is the 1st of January 2022, if the software provider is ready to go by 1 January, then employers will be considered to have started on time if they start reporting by the 1st of March 2022. If the software provider has been given a deferral, then that deferral will also apply to the software provider's clients. We are already aware of one provider who is seeking a deferral to 2023. And irrespective of the software provider's status, employers can apply for individual deferrals from December of this year, with the promise from the Commissioner that the Tax Office will be flexible and reasonable with the transition. This flexibility and transitional approach is the same approach that was undertaken in the successful implementation of STP Phase 1. We will update employers once the individual deferral process has been released. Finally, for employers with employees in Victoria, a new mental health and wellbeing levy, which starts on the 1st of January 2022, will need to be considered. This levy is to pay a surcharge to provide a stable and dedicated form of additional funding for the mental health system. Businesses that pay more than $10 million in wages nationally will pay an additional 0.5% surcharge on Victorian taxable wages paid. Businesses with national payrolls above $100 million will pay 1%. The surcharge is payable at the same time that payroll tax is payable, and there is no need for separate returns to be lodged. And lastly, speaking of STP Phase 2, we are delighted to host our next Payroll Leaders Forum on the 16th of November, featuring Jason Lucchese, the Single Touch Payroll Program Lead at the Tax Office, and Michael Caravas, the guru of Single Touch Payroll. Jason and Michael will outline what payroll leaders need to consider with the looming 1st of January start date, subject to deferral, and will provide an overview of the key changes and benefits resulting from the expansion of STP, along with the actions that payroll leaders can take now to prepare for a smooth transition. We will also answer questions during this live event. You can register now to attend by copying the link on the slides into your browser. And that's it for this month in payroll. If you would like to revisit any of our prior updates, they are available on our website at pwc.com.au/payroll. And should you have any questions or need for support, please reach out to myself or your usual PwC contact. Until next time, have a great month.